everybody, this is the Post Movie Podcast. I'm Steve Head.
I'm John Black.
And we have a guest with us today, Tom Meek, film critic with the Boston Phoenix and president of the Boston Society of Film Critics.
That's a mouthful, but yes, thank you.
Glad you could make it, Tom. I want to say we're recording at Panera, across the street from
Panera
Coolidge.
Bread.
Panera Bread. And so I apologize for any of the background noise, babies crying, people talking.
Anything stupid I say.
Anything John says.
Yeah.
Any cars driving by or anything like that. And hopefully whatever audio washing program I put this thing through will take care of it, and it won't be an issue. And so, anyway, on this week's episode, we're going to talk about Scream 4, the new Wes Craven flick.
I thought it was Scriforum.
Yeah.
No, isn't that
And then we're going to talk about Blowout, which Criterion has refurbished and re-released and looks really cool. And, of course, the films of Brian De Palma. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Sidney Lumet, who passed away recently, sadly. And then we're going to do Picks of the Week. John, what are you doing?
Looking up something. I'm paying attention.
Scream 4. Okay.
Scriforum.
I'm going to wing it because...
I have nothing to do with that.
No, because Barrett said if I do another studio-written summary, see that's the kind of noise I'm talking about. It's a coffee machine. Something.
Espresso. Bad.
Espresso. If I read another studio-written summary, he was going to gouge his eyes out with a pencil. So I don't...
Do you edit this stuff out?
No.
No.
Not really. This is the shit. This is the only shit people listen to.
So I don't want Barrett in Toronto to hurt himself. And then I realized a plot summary for Scream 4 isn't really necessary.
Have you seen any of the other Scream movies?
Yeah. I mean...
When did the first one come out? 90?
I'm saying 15 years.
No, I know it's been 11 years since the last one.
Right.
Did you like it, Tom?
I actually did. I believe I believe the last two were 2 and 3 were not Williamson and Wes Craven collaborations.
Right.
There were other screenwriters involved in it, and I thought actually it was the most invigorating Scream since the original. I actually felt like I sleptwalked through the last 2 Screams with Liev Schreiber and Jamie.
Yeah.
Was it Jamie Kennedy?
Yeah. So many names.
And the Courtney Cox and David Arquette characters. The only time I liked the David Arquette character was in the first one when he was a sheepish, goofy guy. And their relationship and Courtney Cox's character in the films, I never really liked that character. But actually, this time around, they actually lend a lot to the story. Because, of course, now she has the big twist in this is it's Neve Campbell now has a cousin who is a younger cousin, because you need a nubile high school age girl to hang the film on. And, Julia's niece or daughter?
Julia's niece.
Cousin. Niece.
Julia Roberts' niece. But in the movie,
I thought you meant in relation to Neve Campball.
No.
The story.
Stick with us, Steve.
Cousin in the movie, niece in real life. But anyways, she is... the hook in, and because Neve Campbell's no longer the young nubile babe, 10 years.
She's still got it going on.
She does. I'm just saying as far as the marketing goes and all that stuff. And hey, Kevin Williamson, Dawson Creek, he was always into that sort of, just beyond like senior in high school, college sort of.
Wheelhouse.
It is, and I think he goes back there again. I think they actually in this film. I guess I didn't care in the last 2 films, but in this film, I felt that who the killer is, they do a good job of obfuscating that. They put in enough red herrings that actually fool you that you're like, I saw that. There is no I saw that coming. When I found out who the killer was, I was somewhat surprised.
Yeah.
Pleasantly so.
That actually is the twist for me, which actually makes it hard to explain why I liked the last 10 minutes, but why this is not a great movie. I don't want to give away you don't want to do the reveal, but it's a hard one to do, up until that moment.
What do you mean it's a hard one to do?
Because I want to say that there's this and this and this that's great about the reveal and the chase type of situation at the end without giving anything away. And I think that's pretty much what I would say.
I had trouble.
I thought that particular confrontation was interesting. Up until that beforehand.
Well, I thought the opening was great. I mean, I had totally forgotten that in Scream 2 and 3.
Oh, the stab movies.
I mean, and I had reviewed those films and even written that, Jenny McCarthy, gets eviscerated in the stab movies. And I thought, because they all open with the traditional scene, and I believe in all the movies now, I can't even remember, that those traditional scenes are actually real life murders that happen in Woodborough or wherever the town is.
Yeah.
And now but in this case, there's a nice, I don't want to give away the beginning either, because the beginning's also the other nice surprise. There's also a lot of sort of meandering through the horror film milieu. Where are you rooted? And actually, every time you move from one sort of situation to another, it's actually a cool sort of got you in it too. I thought that was really interesting. And
so, but between the beginning and the end, it's pretty much a wasteland.
Well, but no, think about
using loud noises to really jar people, and that was just jarring me out of it.
I did actually get a few little jumps
you
in
screamed,
there.
Didn't you?
I might have screamed.
I
was trying to keep with the movie. But, there's some interesting thing, like Neve Campbell's character has a publicist who's an uber bitch just out to make a name for herself. And she's kind of an interesting side
what's
dish.
her name? Bree from something from Community.
Sure.
Alison Brie.
And she's an interesting side entry in this whole thing. But, of course, there's at the moment, I don't know. There's the moment that certain characters are about to die. Because they're going to die because they're alone in the parking garage. And pretty much that's going to happen.
It's the cat and mouse of that eventuality.
Right. It's right. In other words, what leads up to the final reckoning, the confrontation is the confrontation where somebody actually catches a blade is not all that interesting, and those scenes go on for much longer than they should. Yeah. The sort of cat and mouse with this killer using the cell phone and the internet. I thought it was pretty well updated with those elements.
That's what I had trouble with, because it sounded like they took the first script and then just did a search and replace in their computer and take out email and put in Twitter. Because they make these lines like, they're using the Ghostface app. Or they're, it's on Twitter, it's this and that. And it's like, it's kind of clumsy.
I'm going to get totally film critic on you and say that it's too self-consciously postmodern, and which actually makes it less relevant. Like it's striving to be relevant with all these references, and
people just Twitter. They don't talk about Twittering. They have an app. They don't announce. It was always announcing. Oh, this is how cool we are. This is how new we are. Okay.
Well, the one thing I did like about the movie, and I can't recall who's the actress that plays Kirby? I think this is her.
Hayden Panettiere.
Yeah.
From Heroes.
I think this is going to be her little coming out. I think she sort of had that sort of a nice blend of Molly Ringwald, Sigourney Weaver, and Winona Ryder.
Wow, she a dream girl.
Her character had a couple of runs.
It's not the character, it's just the fact that she sort of had that androgynous sexuality and sensuality. Plus, I like the way her character sort of had that sort of gonzo male bravado to her at certain times, too. And I think that if she can brand that, I think you're going to see her in a few films. Whether she can carry a film or not, I don't know. But I think this movie's going to do something for her.
Which is when you compare it to that absolute bimbo who's the third girl in that trio. The really, really pretty one.
The one who gets
slaughtered? No, because the minute she turns off...
That's a rule.
The minute she turns off, I'm rooting for her to get slaughtered. She was very attractive. She was a total fucking airhead. And it was just like, here's, Emma Robinson's doing a thing. Hayden Panettiere's doing her thing. They're acting, and this other bubble brain is just like standing there, and it's just like, she's very pretty to look at. Very pretty to look at. There's nothing there.
John, she is like eye candy. That's her job, and she is also like the fodder in Star Trek that goes down to the planet.
She's on the red shirt, right?
Job.
She's wearing the red
She's
shirt.
wearing the red shirt. She did her job. Actually, she took it off. No.
Yeah.
What was also good? In a small way, was Marley Shelton, the police. Policewoman.
Hicks.
Yeah. Who was also, I guess, sexually ambiguous.
She made Dewey lemon squares. She wasn't ambiguous. She wanted Dewey.
She was so Anna Faris-like.
Yeah, Yeah, she was Anna Faris Light.
Anna Faris would have been.
Yeah.
Right,
I think
you're right.
I think
They have the same sort of
well, ironically,
qualities.
Anna Faris in a scary movie franchise pretty much was that character as well as Neve Campbell and the hot bimbo blonde all in one.
Exactly.
She's good though, Marty. She was great in God. What'd she do? The Rodriguez films, Planet Terror.
Who? Anna Faris?
She was also Marley Shelton. She was the chick that was killed in Kurt Russell's car at the beginning of Death Proof.
Oh, right.
And then had her.
Which is kind of funny. You think of her as you're like, who is that woman? Because she looks almost.
Yeah,
Rose
and
McGowan.
Connect with it. Yeah.
You're like, where'd the gun from your leg go?
Yeah.
And David Arquette, completely drowsy. I mean, this is the type of character that he plays, that he does well at.
He should show a little more energy in doing it, though. When he was in the first movie, he was a knucklehead, but he was
the slow cop
entertaining.
plays for the movie. I mean, that he's slow to make these connections actually works well for the killer.
Well, but it was more interesting when he wasn't the man in charge. Right. It was kind of it's kind of like that's sort of a credibility knock on the film, because now he has to be a little bit sharper and he has to be more in charge. It was kind of better when it was sort of I won't say Inspector Clouseau, but the guy who accidentally sort of solves it by being doggedly always there, but never the brightest guy. And
he's like the guy who got the job because he survived and kind of ambles into it. He actually was supposed to be killed in the first Scream. They actually filmed the shot. He was supposed to.
I did not
he
know
got
that.
lucky.
In the big picture, do you see any reason for this movie to be made besides?
No, and I will
money for
also make the
dimension
point
film?
that it's not super not original, because this is, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the latest Saw film feature the character coming back, trying to deal with what happened in the past, and they're on a book tour for their self-help book.
I stopped at Saw 3.
I actually reviewed every single Saw film for the Phoenix.
My hero.
And you know what? I can't remember. I can't even really remember what it's all about. I do remember that there's a big changeover in the final Saw to actually tie it up and saw it off.
Cary Elwes coming back. And he...
He
wrote the self-help book or something?
He saw his own leg off in the first one?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he comes back in the latest one?
Yeah.
With a one-legged self-help book?
We just spoiled that for you.
No, I'm not going to see it. I gave up on those movies.
Well, and what's really funny is I did like in this film that they did throw in a lot of things. They had Robert Rodriguez was directing the latest Stab film.
They had that.
And they also did talk about, do we want to, let's pick out a scary film instead of making up a title. They're like, I want Saw 4 because, and
they talk about how bad they are.
Yeah, and I go ahead and say, man, I felt like they were playing to the Austin audience for this. This was consciously built to play at the Alamo Drafthouse. I don't know.
This bothers me. I don't
Just
know
a thought.
This is something that bothered me when I was watching it. Emma, the niece or the cousin, right? Didn't she get killed in one of the opening scenes? Wasn't she one of the? She was the two girls, the brunettes, and she was.
She wasn't. They just look alike.
They just look exactly alike.
Those girls. It's not the same girl. And remember, that was. I'm not going to give it away, but that's not a real killing.
Anna Paquin.
I know. It was Anna Paquin. Christian Bell was one, and then there were two other blondes.
The girl from Friday Night Lights.
And there was the ones who were talking about Scream, and they were texting.
The first two.
Yeah.
No,
I thought that was. Nope. Oh, okay. Well, that's better. I thought it was a really gaffy thing in the movie, but it's just me.
This is just Wes Craven going back to the well.
No, if Wes Craven was going back to the well,
he's been doing that for a while.
He'd take a $50,000 budget, go up to the woods in Vermont, and go back to those kinds of films.
The
will
Last
never
House
be.
on the Left, and
those
Hills
films
Have
will
Eyes.
never be made again because
even though they've been remade, they just remade Last House on the Left. They remade The Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah.
And Cinemax has The Hills Have Thighs, which I've seen. So there's that.
Well, the other funny thing about this whole thing is, I was just wondering so Courtney and David are falling apart while they're making this film.
Really?
It's kind of
Their characters progressed to getting married, but now in real life they're falling apart. Is this something?
They're having a nasty thing going on, and it was happening during the filming of this. It started beforehand, which is why making Saw 4 is pretty funny. Saw 4. Excuse me, Scream 4.
There's also an article on Entertainment Weekly talking about all the fighting that went on set between Craven and the Weinstein.
Oh, I can believe it. I was listening to the press conference, and they sound so staid and cold.
Yeah.
Like they're not really giving...
Craven's pretty adamant this isn't the movie he wanted to make.
I don't feel like it's going to go anywhere after this. I mean, this is, like I said, it wanted to be relevant, but it's not.
I think it's going to do well.
Yeah. What's it opening against? The Conspirator. Rio's probably going to be big.
Right, Rio, the Conspirator,
and that god awful Scandinavian.
You know, but the thing is that they're
it'll probably do well. I agree with you. I'm not happy about that.
Right. I mean, Rio is not the same. You're not going to get people sitting through Rio.
No, kids who can't get into Rio will go and see this.
There you go. Spillover audience.
Yeah.
I do love that when I go to a press screening like Scream 4 and people come in with like 2 or 3 year old kids.
Oh my God.
I'm just like, what?
Infants, yeah.
No, I'm not.
No, but at least if Rio's a hit, it'll knock Hop off the top of the box office.
Not that Rio's any crowning achievement.
No, but Hop was less.
I didn't see Hop, thankfully.
I think you're right. I think this will probably make a ton of money, but it actually kind of saddens me because the movie was very much like a process, a money grab in a way. And they also, Weinstein greenlit it because they were taking advantage of the Michigan production tax credit, which Michigan, I think, is going to do away with because they're not sure that it's actually benefiting tourism to the state.
Just like we did it here?
Do you want to visit Michigan?
Visit Michigan. It's perform.
Whatever.
Well, Boston's a little different than from Michigan.
Yeah. No one ever said it was shot in Michigan. At least they make it seem like it was shot in Boston, even if it was filmed in Toronto.
Yeah, I thought the last 10 minutes was kind of cool, but I can't recommend it.
I bet you it'll be number 1 or 2 at the box office, and it'll probably disappear in 3 or 4 weeks, but it'll probably, I don't know what it costs to make the film. I'm going to guess like 25 to 40 million. And I bet you the film probably does over 100 million in its primary run.
Neve Campbell has got to be doing this begrudgingly. I mean,
why? Because she acts that way.
It just doesn't seem. It seems like she has something that ought to be better than this. I mean, I loved The Company, the Altman film. She's actually really talented, and she mopes her way through these films.
Well, that's the character. She's been beaten down by the murder of her mom, and she's carrying a lot of baggage with her. I mean, come on, that's her book? It's about stepping out of the darkness. It's about dealing with it and coming out.
But she's still the same mopey girl she's been.
We'll hear the Diana Ross song right now.
But I think we should probably all step out of the darkness.
Yeah, we gotta
walk away.
We just leave it for dead.
I think it was like one person, i.e. myself, has like a restrained recommend.
You know, it's funny that it's like you just, in talking about the movie, just get the sense like John's like, I'm thinking like, this conversation is over. It can't go any further.
That's right.
After this point, it's like, all right.
I think fans of the film will be happy.
Well, I don't know who this kid was. There was a kid sitting next to me.
I saw that.
And he should have been wearing a diaper. He was so excited. He'd been waiting 11 years.
Oh,
11
my
years.
God. You said your skin was going to melt off or something.
And it was...
I thought he was joking.
No.
I kept thinking, like, this has got to be hyperbole or joking. And
no, he was so wrapped up.
I kept looking out of the corner of my eye and listening. I'm like, he is serious.
He must have been 11 years ago when the franchise first stalled.
That is shocking.
Stalled.
It's at this point now where it's like, you reminded me of like when we went to see the Harry Potter press screening.
Right.
And all these freaking Emerson students were like waddling their way into the theater on Quidditch brooms. And I think it was Dan Kimmel who said to me, Steve, you got to realize these kids were 10 when the movie started. And now they're like...
I watched them play Quidditch in the Commons.
I've seen that before too.
It's insane. But this kid was just he wasn't even it was bizarre. I saw it. It takes a certain effort to dress up like Harry Potter, and be the character, walk around with Quidditch. This kid had no governors, no anything. He was just raw. He was this raw pulsating thing next to me. Oh, he's
like, don't ruin it for me. Don't ruin it for me. Somebody's like, Neve Campbell dies, and he's like,
and he and the guy behind him were arguing about the movie before right after the credits started. They said, "Oh, it's better than 3, better than 2."
It's just, it's not.
God.
Man, I have to ask you. Okay,
yes.
Insidious, The Right, and now this. What of the current horror films do you actually like?
What was Insidious?
The movie that you hated that the guy from James Wan.
Oh yeah, I hated that one. What was the other one?
Right, with Anthony Hopkins and.
Oh, that was pretty bad too. But that was entertainingly bad.
But guys, come on, we're in the season when the shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
I mean, those films have probably been sitting around. They didn't know what to do with them, so.
I can't remember anything off the top of my head. I didn't study for this, Teach.
You see?
Pop quiz.
I Saw the Devil.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh
one.
man, that was insane.
I didn't love that movie. I mean,
that was an insane amount of blood.
Well, the first 45 minutes is like it's great, but then the next of it, it's like wash, rinse, and repeat, and it just kind of goes. It goes from being something that's really sort of dark, realistic, and
it was
visceral
visually
to go
definitely visceral, but just so shocking.
But it loses its shock. I mean, what ends up happening,
you become numb to it.
I'm trying to. No, I wasn't going to say that either. I'll get to that point. But what happens is that you're dealing with a real life situation about a cop whose wife has been killed by a serial killer. And he starts to pursue him. He needs to, and then he finds the guy, and he doesn't kill him. He beats him up and sort of leaves him out there. And you think, okay, he's going to let justice happen later on. Right. And then the film just kind of like goes into hyperbole. I mean, it moves into this whole other realm where there's other serial killers, there's sort of secret societies. You know, like the law, the rule of law that we experience in every day with cops and stuff. Like, in other words, it goes from being a true life, gritty street story to being something that's implausible and fantasy.
Yeah, it was absurd. Moral of the story: don't play cat and mouse with a serial killer.
True.
When you have the opportunity, you get rid of it.
I think that's true with any kind of.
It was just playing with fire.
I mean, I think Truffaut said it best in the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Is when some guy sits there telling him about how he's going to kill him, and Tuco pulls out a gun from under the thing. He's like, "Hey, when you're going to shoot somebody, shoot somebody. Don't sit there and talk about it."
The monologuing in Scream 4 is something that just goes on and on and on, and you think of that. Anyway. Okay, I Saw the Devil. I just want to say there is a scene where he offs those two guys that pick him up hitchhiking in the car. Insane. I remember watching this thinking that I have not seen that kind of a killing on screen before, with all the camera moving around and the blood fight. I mean, it was just shocking.
The Korean cinema right now, I think Korean. Well, I was going to say Iranian film. There's a series of Iranian filmmakers who are now all in jail because of opposing Iran. But the Korean filmmakers really have a really fresh brand on.
They do
on the noir and the horror genre.
Yeah.
Jang Bong-ho. There's like 3 or 4 of them. I mean, and there's even one Japanese filmmaker, Takeshi Mike.
Oh yeah, and he's got a film coming up.
Yeah, I mean, there's just
13 Warriors.
Yeah.
I think it's playing
Mother was a great film.
It was.
I mean, The Host and those films. Now, The Host is a film where a film goes from a family drama into a hyperbole and fantasy and horror and stuff that kind of works because it stays rooted in the family most of the time. Right. Even though you've got this mutant creature running around, this city. Whereas I think that film works from beginning to end. I think I Saw the Devil doesn't quite. I think it's a great ride. I think the filmmaking's amazing. I think where he goes with it, I just think the story loses. It runs out of gas. I mean, how much?
It's a long movie.
It's a long movie for what
minutes.
It is.
Yeah. Did you see Poetry?
I did not.
Did you see it?
I will in a couple of days.
Okay.
That's a screener.
That was one that it was again, I forget
South Korea.
It's a Korean filmmaker, and I'm going to forget his name, but it was about an old woman who wanted to learn how to write poetry before she got Alzheimer's. Anyone tells you that's my cup of tea, they're lying.
Did you just see it?
No, I saw it when it came in the theaters.
I
was blown away by it. I had so much fun with this movie. I was like, I'm watching an old lady learn how to write poetry.
I think it's still maybe
so fascinating.
It's
sparingly on the Stewart Street.
Yeah, that's where I just saw her poster for. It was at Stewart Street. So.
And this other South Korean flick that Magnolia has, Chaws, The Killer Pig.
Yeah, we'll discuss that next week.
I have not seen that one, so...
Your daughter loaned it to me. Yeah. John, George.
Shall we move on?
Yeah.
Criterion is releasing Brian De Palma's Blowout this week, I believe. And what a great film. Would have flopped, but I've been reading a lot about De Palma lately and what a fan Pauline Kael was of his work, and how she says that this movie just basically was the pinnacle of all things that he, up until that time, was doing. Very representative of it.
I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid on this.
But I'm not going to say that it's the most awesome thing. It's just, it's filmed with anamorphic lens, so it's got that wide, sort of 70s feel to it. It's an 80s film. I mean, it came out in 81, but it's got a very kind of 70s feel to it. And it's certainly worth rediscovering. That's basically my point.
I was reading in the booklet how critics are unfair by calling him clinical.
How do you mean?
That, it's my reaction. I think his movies are very interesting, but not very exciting. There's a coldness there. There's a distance between him and his subject that keeps me from getting really involved. And not in like something like Carrie. That was a thrill ride for me. But even like in Blowout, I know there's that distance between sound and what's going on in Travolta's character. But there's something about, John, I'm not getting, I'm looking at it. It's very beautiful. It's very well shot.
But I'm not wrapped up with him.
I'm not wrapped up in the story.
I think the Travolta character as well as the Nancy Allen character, they're just not all that identifiable. I mean, they're very sort of two-dimensional. I mean, there's a romantic spark between them, but John Travolta's character is a guy. He's a sound engineer, and he's pretty much a keep it to himself kind of guy.
I was going to say they're both very lonely, introverted characters in their way.
But people who are lonely and introverted can be interesting characters that people identify with, like Dawn Wiener in Welcome to the Dollhouse. These characters are just kind of generic people. I mean, they're you get those things. They're lonely. He's got this job. She's does the escort thing. She's bubbly, a little ditzy.
Well, that's an interesting point. There is some people who made the point that like Hitchcock characters in De Palma's films are like parts of the machinery playing out this grander thing, within this construct.
Well, but in the Hitchcock films, I mean, and there is a big difference there. The lead character, a lot of times, are very square, generic people, but those people were always everyman. Like the Jimmy Stewart, the Cary Grants, they were something everybody could identify with because you could see yourself being that person, having that job, having those things, getting caught up in that one event that changes your life. These people are people you're like, you would never really want to be to begin with, or never really could that most people wouldn't identify with, and most people, if they were those people, wouldn't want to be those people.
Strangely, I found myself kind of identifying with Travolta, not the decisions that he made, but the job that he had, which is really cool. The sound designer for
but that's different. I mean, take the job out. Think about the person, not the job. I
think De Palma lets an awful lot up to our imaginations by giving us the close-up and saying, okay, you fill in the blanks. I've got this great shot.
He does do that.
But I don't have enough info to fill in the blanks.
I think De Palma's made a lot of I hate to use the word again, visceral films off of thin concepts that are really sort of to-know things. I mean, I'll just name a few of them. Snake Eyes, The Fury, even Blowout for that matter. I mean, if you look, a lot of things in the Blowout with the special effects he does on the scene and the shower scenes are very reminiscent of Dress to Kill, which he made the year before, which is a much better story, has better actors and more interesting characters, because you got the introverted, nerdy boy who's Angie Dickinson's son, and there's an affair going on. There's a lot of crazy backstory that goes into that film, whereas these guys, our heroes here, have no backstory. There's really nothing interesting about them when you meet them. The interesting thing is the quote unquote cover up conspiracy, and when you get to the end of that, it's like.
What about being drawn? I was drawn to Nancy Allen's vulnerability. Well, her body, yeah. But she's just such a flake, and he feels like she needs to pursue this and be protected, and not just be walking around in a cloud. And she doesn't get that John Lithgow is going to come after her.
The thing that makes the film interesting are three things. First of all, the fact that De Palma uses a Rashomon kind of style in dissecting a single event, and he keeps coming back to it. And that event sort of unfolds as it gets looked at differently and differently, almost like the raster character in No Way Out with Kevin Costner. You know, there's the ultimate truth in the end, and you know, you need to go through this long sort of ordeal and analysis and stuff. The other thing is, of course, his filmmaking and score. He's really gets these things.
Oh,
you can hear the music and the color palette and stuff, especially in Philadelphia on the 4th of July and stuff. But it's the story and the characters are very, very weak. The most interesting character, I think, in the film is either Dennis Franz or John Lithgow. And John Lithgow is even playing like something that is incredibly two-dimensional.
Yeah.
Like, really, when you get to the end, like, what is your He does. He rocks it. But what the hell is his motivation?
Yeah.
And where did he come from? Like, you know, like you throw a character out
He's
there
just
like
a guy that just doesn't. He doesn't have an overwhelming emotion.
he was a predecessor in the guy, and I saw the devil.
Cold, you know.
They never make that. I think it's a great performance, but they never make it a connection clear. He talks to some old guy in the telephone. You're like, who's that old guy? What's he talking about? How did this guy go rogue like this? Because they had some meeting where they turned down his plan. All that's just filled in with little details that weren't.
He wanted to do a better job than what he was employed for.
If you want to talk, if you want to talk, I mean, obviously, a lot of De Palma's championships are well known. The Untouchables, Carrie. I mean, I guess if you want to go to his Shock Days, Sisters, but and of course his disaster. You know, his failures, Raising Cane's, Bonfires. I don't think Bonfires is as bad of a film as
Things
everybody
usually tend to be that way. There's a large consensus that like Ishtar would suck, so you get this idea that it really sucks, and then you watch and you're like, you know, it's not half bad.
Well, and Ishtar sucks, and
but I'm just
the movie.
But it's not as bad as it was made out to be.
It happens when people tell you something's great, you know, and you go see it, like, really?
The movie that De Palma made that I actually really have a lot of respect for, and I was really disappointed that it didn't take off, was Casualties of War.
That's what I was hoping you were going to say. I was really impressed.
Fantastic performances. Probably the best big screen performance Michael J. Fox has ever done.
Absolutely.
And the cast is unbelievable in that film. I think John Leguizamo's in it.
Yeah, surprising choice.
Sean Penn. I mean, and
John C. Reilly.
John C. Reilly. And I can't remember if that movie was sort of, you know, another retooling of, you know, the Platoon with the Elias and the Barn.
Well, I think it suffered because it wanted to come out like 89, 80, some of the, and there was a plethora of like Vietnam films, and it sunk because maybe people were getting tired of that kind of thing.
Maybe.
Great film, though.
Great film, yeah. I mean, and it's shot really well. And the other thing that's really impressive about it, as well as Untouchables to a degree too, when you're talking about films that De Palma made, it's really a radical departure from the things that he's always gone back to with the over lead-in score, which sometimes works perfectly.
Right.
Other times, you know,
interesting that he does that.
Covering up that.
He does jump around. Like he went from Blowout to Scarface, which was totally different.
Talking about an overly lead-in score.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, it kind of drives it. I mean, but you know, it's just.
And then he did a comedy, John Astin and Tom Smothers, called Get to Know Your Rabbit. It was really bad.
Yeah.
But it was an attempt.
Do you remember Body Double?
Yeah,
I digged it. You know,
you digged it? I
did. I really did. But then again, I was kind of in Frankie Goes to Hollywood at the time, so.
Have you seen it since? I mean, I've seen it more recently.
It didn't age well.
It doesn't age well. Craig Watson is not a leading man.
I always thought that was Bill Maher for the longest time.
Me too. It's
I thought it was Bill Maher.
It's got the Bill Maher look.
But it did have...
before Bill Maher had the Bill Maher
It was kind of like a retelling of Rear Window. And it plays with one of his major themes, voyeurism.
It was totally derivative of it.
They let Melanie Griffith do what she was made for.
She's a horrible actress.
Yeah,
I mean,
I didn't mention her
voice,
performance.
When she talks, the only time that Melanie, even in that Working Girl film, it's just like, I'm like, can we erase her out and put somebody else in?
Really? You go that far?
Voice?
I would say she works best only when she's cast correctly, and she was cast, I think, correctly.
I'm just not a fan. I mean, her voice kind of annoys me in the way she kind of has that squinched up side look of her face when she accentuates.
Did you see that movie where she's carrying around a severed head in a hat box?
What?
No, there's some movie. It's I think it's got Alabama in the title.
Wasn't that Joe Pesci, Heads in the Duffel Bag?
No. One of the two movies
you got me. I don't know.
But there was some movie. It was like Sweetheart. It was something about Alabama or something. I'll look it up.
Two for the Road or
something.
Too Hot.
She plays this like bimbo aunt who's going across country with her young nephew. nephew, and she's got a severed head in the hat box.
It's called "Bring Me the Head of Antonio Banderas."
Yeah.
Is that the reveal, or you know this all along?
They keep dropping hints. You know, there's something in the box. It's such a stupid movie, but again, I had a tiny crush on her until I actually met the woman.
That can go the wrong way sometimes.
And what was the myth dispeller there?
She is so plastic looking in person.
Really?
Oh yeah,
fake.
She get, like,
and it was for Stuart Little. You know, so
did she have work done?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think let's put it this way. I think she looked under construction, so I'm assuming she had work.
like Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
Across her face,
Yeah,
it said TBD.
Yeah.
Or TBC.
There was scaffolding on her forehead, you know. And
wow, poor Antonio.
Yeah.
Man, I want to get back to the disc real quick because, as I've said before, there's you'll watch making of stuff, you know, and usually you can take one or two things, you know, you learn about film from these documentaries. What I learned from Noah Baumbach's interview with how do you pronounce his name? Baumbach?
Noah?
Yeah. Noah Baumbach interviews De Palma on the disc. It's a 1-hour interview, and he talks about coverage and hating the term coverage, and how the term coverage doesn't work from a director's standpoint, and he doesn't even want to hear it.
What are you talking about coverage?
Like, well, when a producer wants to make sure that they've got, you know, when you go into the editing room and a producer wants to make sure that they've got all the scene, all the shots, you know, so they'll cover a set with multiple cameras. But De Palma shoots with one camera and knowing exactly what he wants to shoot, so it's like there's no net. You can't go back and edit the way back to
traditionally,
something.
everybody used to just shoot with one camera until Peckinpah blew the lid off that. I said the problem with shooting with multiple cameras is lighting and the fact you got your booms and everything in there.
Yeah,
that's usually the problem. I didn't know. I mean, anytime you have like staged dialogue between people, you're usually using one camera. Nobody would shoot the three of us sitting here talking.
Period.
Well, period. But if they did, I couldn't imagine that they would ever use any more than one camera.
Well, it's a producer's conceit. They're covering themselves. They want to make sure that they got the shots that they want. But from a director's standpoint, it's funny in the interview because he won't even let Baumbach use the word coverage. He stops him. Doesn't exist.
I haven't made it through the extras yet. I saw the movie this morning.
Great interview with the guy who invented the Steadicam, Garrett Brown, and the construction of the opening scene of Blowout. Terrific.
I'd love to see De Palma do something new that was.
What was his last one? Redacto?
Was it Redacted?
I actually liked that movie.
Was it?
No, I think it might have been. I think it actually might have been the Black Dahlia, maybe. No, you're right.
That was
it
a
actually
stinker.
was. Redacted. I actually liked Redacted. Everybody hated that film. I thought it was, again, a very non-typical Brian De Palma film, but the two before that, Femme Fatale and Black Dahlia, were very De Palma-esque. Huh? Femme Fatale. Both really bad films.
Rebecca Romaine.
I can't defend them, but I love Femme Fatale.
I actually like Black Dahlia. I love the look of the sets. I kind of like the sort of pulp noirish thing, although the story is just
that voiceover? Just from the very start, it's like, shut up.
Did you get the press book they sent out for? They did a really neat press book for Black Dahlia. Yeah.
Josh Hartnett should not be allowed to be a leading cop.
Done? Well,
Sidney Lumet.
Sidney Lumet changed the way I review movies, but not in the way you'd expect. He wrote a book called Making Movies, and it's a little book. It came out, I don't know, 20 years ago, and in it he described. It just clicked for me that he did the 12 Angry Men.
Yes, he
did. It was
did.
his first movie, and he's working with Henry Fonda and Lee J. Cobb, who refused to appear together on the same stage. So he has to shoot Lee J. Cobb standing against one wall, Henry Fonda standing against the other, and then cut. He describes how he changes the lens on the camera to make the film, shrink, to make everything get, more claustrophobic on the screen. So I found that fascinating. And then chapters later, he's filming The Wiz.
Yeah,
that is just.
He sees the first set of dailies and he goes, "It's not going to work. I know right now this is not going to work, but I've got millions of dollars on the line. I've got all these stars, the studio's after me, so I have to finish it, but I know it's a piece of shit." And just listening to a director talk like that, gave me a little
It's real.
pause more about,
It's
you know,
real.
when I look at movies, I'm always like, well, maybe it just didn't work.
Well,
Maybe there's something that, you know, this is
It
the way it
happens.
is.
It happens on films, and people.
I think you can have like a great book. There are books that are unfilmable. Take Atlas Shrugged, which actually happened to open this.
You're the only person in the world to see that, right?
How did you
That's
get
what
to
Jim
see
Grenier
that?
told me.
I saw the review in the Phoenix yesterday, and I thought, what?
Actually, the Globe saw it too. They got a DVD sent to them. But you know, certain books like Midnight, and maybe a re-envisioning of that could work too. I mean, I think there's always a different way to tell the story, but I think, you know, sometimes you get something in your mind, something's on page, and you go to make it, and just the wrong things are involved, and you're off and running, and so that happens.
You know, it's what sucks is like also like when a number of the crew, like a large number of the crew knows that it sucks, and you have this sort of like, oh man, I got to show up to work and do this, and you know that this is where it's going to go.
Yeah, or your actors know that, or
it's kind of depressing.
Yep.
And the actors too. So part of a director's job sometimes is to actually change that, you know, create the positive attitude, change that whole air about a movie, and it can happen.
So one of my favorite sort of not very popular, but I think it's a great movie, Sidney Lumet films, you know, sort of my contra side to Casualties of War with De Palma is Q&A with Nick Nolte.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
and
Came out about the same time as Timothy Hutton and Armand Assante. Came out about the same time as Casualties of War. And you know what the thing was with Lumet too? He made films that dealt with the same kind of material all throughout his things. You know, the justice system, cops. Conflict across boundaries.
Family situations.
And right up to the end. I mean, his last film, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead.
I so loathed that. I was going to walk out on it.
You loathed it?
Yeah.
Oh.
I just it was so tragically depressing.
You loved it. A lot of people. I was on my top 10 list. I mean, a lot of people put it on their top 10 list.
Well, it's just
I'm sitting here going, oh,
you just like the Marissa Tomei opener.
Oh man,
Always.
it was excruciating. I'm sorry. You know, some people I
think that's the perfect phrase. That was the Marissa Tomei opener.
Literally, figuratively.
You know what was good about that movie though that I did like? I think Michael Shannon. Was Michael Shannon the goofy brother that tries to shake down the money? Or maybe I'm getting my act. Do you remember that?
I thought that was Ethan Hawke.
No. He's like the like the shady brother of the girlfriend.
I haven't seen it since it came out, so
you know that realizes he might be able to get.
When
some
you say
money
Michael Shannon, I just think about that bizarre bravado performance from Revolutionary Road.
Oh God!
Now I think about him slapping nails into his back on Boardwalk Empire.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying you thought about him in dark rooms.
Oh no!
Slapping something.
Right. The ways I think about Michael Shannon.
Anyway, I think Lumet made some. He's kind of like Palmer. He made some great ones. He stumbled a few along the way, but
Lumet's career was much better. I think De Palma has more of a signature style. Lumet made so many more great films than Brian De Palma did or ever will.
Yeah.
I mean, 12 Angry Men,
The Verdict.
The Verdict.
Was he like making a movie every
Network,
year?
Serpico.
Serpico.
Yeah.
Even Prince of the City was not a bad film.
No.
Q&A. I mean, it's
The Wiz.
Well, some people actually do love that film.
You know, it's just.
I think Dog Day Afternoon is just
Another one.
incredible.
Did he do
Incredible.
Injustice for All?
I love
He
it.
did.
The Verdict.
Yeah.
The Verdict,
He definitely had a way with actors.
probably the best Boston crime film ever. That or Friends of Eddie Coyle. You really can't say The Verdict's really a crime film. I mean, but it kind of has. Since Lumet directed it, he's always dealing with things that are definitely not on the up and up. Eddie Coyle's so much better than The Departed, but nobody will give it its due.
I love watching Eddie Coyle and going, hey, that's no longer there. That's no longer there.
Yeah.
It was 1970s Boston, but
Also did
the Anderson tapes.
The Anderson tapes and Murder on the Orient Express.
Oh yeah, terrific.
The Anderson tapes with Sean Connery and Diane Cannon.
And young Christopher Walken.
Yes, it's still a great adventure thriller, but it's so funny because at the time, all these listening devices and things they used to tape people were cutting edge, but now it's like tape recorders really don't go boop boop boop, computers don't go grrr, Was this his, I don't know, 70s thing?
Would this have come around the same time as the Coppola film?
The Conversation?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Approximately, yes.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking
Coppola
of...
film was 74, I believe, or was it 76? It was the same. This was 75, I believe. Well, I know for a fact.
And let's just give a big hey now to Diane Cannon. Hey now. She was something back in the day. Now she's just like this lady, this elderly lady at the Lakers game. But
some are worth
71.
I was 12.
Like Candice Bergen. I'm just totally throwing that out there. But like today, Sand Pebbles, holy shit.
Yeah. Steve McQueen
the same with
dead. Sand Pebbles alive.
Guys, it's called aging. You know, you guys are going to be youthful matinee idols for the rest of your lives.
That's for sure. That's for sure. All right, so now picks of the week.
Picks of the week.
What do you got, like 60?
I got a couple.
I knew it.
I brought this with me because I slept through it the first time.
You called
if
it
you recall?
Chronicle of Nuns.
Yeah, the Chronicles of the Voyage of the Dawn Trader, which just came out on DVD, and watched it this week
and?
on Blu-ray. It was beautiful.
What?
Beautiful. Yeah, it's a lot of CGI. Yeah, it's a lot of, it's kind of a kid's film, but it was really cool to watch.
What about the religious overtones?
I wasn't thinking about it.
Although I started going to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
But when I saw this, I slept so soundly in the theater. I just was so refreshed after the movie.
And now you've seen it.
And now I've actually seen it.
I just feel that series, like...
It's bloodless, but it's good.
It's just kind of... I was done with it after.
Didn't you like Simon Pegg as the voice of as the rat?
Sure. It was great. Hurry up, get your fixing quick.
Yeah. And earlier this week I saw The Leopard with Burt Lancaster, the Lucina Visconti film. It was 180 minutes with intermission, but I've been over the past couple of weeks been discovering Lucina Visconti, and Criterion came out with Senso, his mid-50s flick, with Farley Granger, who I think he passed away a year or two ago. For all I think everybody says about Lucina Visconti, his films, if you're not interested in Italian culture, they're boring. I mean, it can be like The Leopard was a chore to get through, but I found it, important. So I stayed with it. I would have to say the same thing about Senso, but the way Criterion does it on DVD, it looks terrific. And there's a great documentary on here where they interview most of his friends and the people who work for him. I did not know that this guy was so volatile. He had like this insane temper, and he'd go through these like outbursts, and then he'd have like 3-4 hours of apologizing to people on the set. In a way, I think he was some people really feared him, but he was kind of like a guy who couldn't get fired from his movie. Right. You know what I mean? He was, Italian aristocracy. He had a lot of, he liked things a certain way. He was very entitled. And if you didn't do what he wanted you to do, like pick up the phone the right way, you could get in trouble. So it created a very tense atmosphere on the set. But in a Kubrick kind of way, the movies are really riveting because they're so precise. So I wouldn't say go deep with it, but it's interesting to watch. Senso.
Cool. All right. I'm going to make this quick. I saw a movie called The Road to Coronation Street. Coronation Street is a British soap opera. It's been on TV for more than 50 years. It was part of a deal when they opened a radio company in Manchester, up in the north of England. The government said, okay, we'll let you open this, but you got to do local programming. And this young guy came up with an idea of doing a soap opera that showed blue-collar working families and what their life was like, and no one wanted them to do it, because they want entertainment, glitz and glamour. People want to see better than themselves on TV. And the guy was like, no, they want to see themselves. So it's this great little documentary about what it's like to make TV in the 1960s. It's just a lot of fun. And then they show them filming the first episode, then they give you the first episode as an extra of this. And it's, I don't know if I'd want all 50 years of it on DVD, but it was a good introduction, and it was very well done and very entertaining. So So I'll leave it at that before it gets too noisy in here. Tom's got one.
Two of my top 10 films came out on DVD this year. First one is a French film by Claire Denis called White Material. Interesting film for Claire Denis because it takes place in Africa during the farm reclaim times in Zimbabwe, although the country at hand is not named. Christopher Lambert's in it. Isabel Hubbard's in it. It's beautifully shot. There's a lot of dark backstory in it. The farm that she owns is a coffee bean farm, and she is determined to get the last bumper crop in, even as the country's falling apart, and young rebels, 13-year-old boys with guns, are moving in. It just really moves in some very interesting ways. And she is the director who made, I think, one of the creepiest horror films in the past 10 or 20 years, even creepier than Let the Right One In. It's called Trouble Every Day, and Vincent Gallo it's actually, imagine if somebody actually really wanted to be a vampire but didn't have the fangs. I mean, seriously, it is one of the creepiest, craziest films, very sexual and sensual.
So did this get a release last year?
No, yes, it did. Kendall. The other film that's coming out on DVD this week is called Marwan Cole. It's a documentary about a man who lives in upstate New York who was beaten unconscious, and he was a graphic artist before he was beaten unconscious, and after he regained consciousness, he had short-term memory issues, as well as the fact he could no longer draw, and he was a talented graphic artist. They show some of his work in the film. So in order to create the worlds that he was creating as a graphic artist, he started creating everything in miniature with dolls and sets and stuff. It sounds like a very bland documentary. However, what's really interesting is the way the town, it's a small town, shapes around him and stuff. The director, Jeff Malmenberg, was a guest of ours at the Brattle Theater this year. He was our guest for our Boston Society of Film Critics Awards, as well as the editor, the Academy Award nominated editor for The Black Swan. Not as glamorous as getting Jeremy Renner in, but still a very gracious guest. The Q&A was fantastic. The documentary will really move you in ways that you would find surprising, and it's really well crafted film.
And they just won a grant to market the film. They won a $50,000 grant to help, so he can help get some assistance in, getting the movie to its audience.
Well, that's an interesting thing about the film is they were making the documentary, and it appeared on a lot of people's top 10 lists, and was a lot of documentary award winners, but it was nowhere to be seen at the Academy Awards. And the story behind that is that in order to qualify for the Academy Awards, you have to be released on X number of screens in a certain format, and they had already released the film in a different format on different screens, so they're going to have to pay, to reformat the film was going to cost tens of thousands of dollars, and then they would have to re-show it on all those screens again that they already showed it on. So in other words, getting to, just because the Academy picks you doesn't mean that better films haven't been picked. Same thing with foreign language films. I don't know if people know that, but the countries pick the one film that represents them.
Which is why...
so therefore, France...
That's the right one and didn't get Sweden.
Perhaps. But I'm just thinking France is, traditionally has a lot of great films, but only one can be up for the Academy Award, as opposed to many of them. So the foreign language film is another sort of problematic area when you're talking about getting the best film nominated. But those are my two picks, both on my top 10.
Are they going to do a book? Is Mark actually going to... His photos are amazing, all right?
They have made a book already. We raffled off one of the books.
So is it something you can buy online, or is it...
I believe you can. Well, there's a website, marwancole.com, which has several things there. Information about the film where it's playing, B, information about the artist, Mark Hogenkamp, and ways to get involved with the film. I think you can buy stuff there. I think one of the things that they're apprehensive about, the guy who's the artist in there receives short-term disability.
Oh, if he makes too
So
much money.
they don't want to actually have the stuff. So I think a lot of the stuff goes to an artist fund for him at a hobby store there, so that he can continue to get his surprise. And the other things go to supporting the film. So you may be able to buy the book. We did as part of our awards festival. We had a still by the artist. We got raffled off, which was amazing. Still,
Yeah, really terrific photos this guy does of the miniatures.
Yeah, and there was a picture book as well.
Tom, thanks.
Thanks for signing off.
Thanks for joining us. John?
I'm done. Pick up your check at the bursar.
Yeah, the bursar.
You can listen to all of our shows online. We're at post-movie.net, and check us out on Facebook. Just
See,
enter
these fans are driving me crazy.
thousands.
Tell them to get their hands off John.
Yeah. Not yet.
So just type in post-movie, and we'll come up on Facebook, and then we're on iTunes too. If you can leave us a review, that would be incredible and awesome. And
As long as it's not a slam.
Yeah, no slams. And if you have any questions, send us an email. We're at contact@post-movie.net. So until next week, I'm Steve Head.
I'm John Black.
So long, everyone.